This is Trinity Storm here and you are watching 16th part of Naruto the Unknown Dojutsu. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Shizune had just told Naruto the name of her childhood friend who she had fallen in love with. Naruto suspected there was something else besides Kenzo, but she seemed to come to a halt after saying the name. It made the blonde wonder if he even had a surname or a clan. Shizune's face was blank, staring into the distance, which caused the boy to snap his fingers in front of her, breaking her trance. Kenzo. He doesn't have a last name? Inquired Naruto. No, he never said anything else to me. I only know his name was Kenzo. Shizune regained her composure and responded. Well, that stinks because there are a lot of Kenzos in this world, Naruto said as he ate the last of his ramen. Please don't remind me. How does he appear? Naruto went on. If what you say about liking him is true, he must be really handsome, right?
Obviously, I don't know what he looks like right now because it's been so long since we last saw each other.
Shizune shot back. But I can tell you what I remember. She began rubbing her chin, recalling the appearance of an old friend. Well, he has spiky brown hair. He has a scar that runs through his right eye, similar to Kakashi case. Sans, when his teacher was mentioned, Naruto's eyes widened when he learned that this Kenzo guy had a scar like that. He's also fairly tall. With light brown skin. He always has a big grin on his face, just like you, except he looks like he's planning something nefarious whenever he does. The girl blushed as she remembered her friend's appearance, causing Naruto to smirk. You miss him, don't you? Naruto teased. Stop talking to me with that voice. She exclaimed, prompting Naruto to raise both arms in defeat. And of course, I miss him. I recall him inviting me out to play. You see, he despises childish things, despite the fact that we were both children at the time. I was 10 years old at the time, and we hadn't yet become ninjas. It was after Uncle Dan's death, and he was worried about me because I hadn't shown my face in days. Flashback. What is this? Shizune asked, wiping her tears away. Kenzo had picked her up from her house earlier that day because he was going to show her something she won't be able to resist. It's been a week since Dan Kato died, and aside from Tsunade, Shizune seemed to take it the hardest. Kenzo was deeply moved to see his friend in such distress, so he decided to do something he would not have agreed to do if it hadn't been for Shizune. He went to his friend's house earlier, dressed casually in a small white blazer, gray shirt, and brown pants, and she seemed a little happier to see him. He took her to the village playground, much to her surprise, because he despised the place because he despised children's preferences. First and foremost, little Miss Princess, I didn't bring you here to play, Kenzo said in his usual voice, making sure to show his true intentions, and Shizune can be seen blushing after he called her by her made-up name. It's because you've been crying like hell for over a week now, and frankly, it's not my type to see you crying like hell. He continued, looking to the side to avoid blushing. So, what are your plans for the time we're here? I know you enjoy playing, so you should get started while I'm still in the mood. Shizune remained motionless for a few seconds. Kenzo was becoming increasingly irritated by the second, to the point where a tick mark appeared on his head. Before he could say anything, Shizune giggled sweetly and ran over to him, enveloping him in a big and tight hug. To avoid being embarrassed, the brunette turned away once more and stood still. One thing he clearly despised was being embarrassed in front of others. Thank you, thanks. Shizune expressed her feelings through tears. Kenzo-chan, you're the best. In response, the boy groaned and gently pushed her away. Yes, I'm the best, I've got it. He noticed that his friend was no longer crying after their brief embrace. He sighed in relief before switching to a heightened voice and doing a complete 180. How many times do I have to remind you not to call me that? It's completely humiliating and girly. Remember how much I despise that kind of thing? With a tick mark on his head, he demanded. "Hello. Kenzo-chan is so adorable when he's angry." Shizune said this while pinching his cheek, causing him to blush furiously at the contact. "Okay. That's enough," he groaned, slapping her hand away from his face gently so as not to hurt the girl. "So, as I previously stated, what do you want to do while we're still here? It's not every day that I agree to play in your games, so make this one count." As they walked through the playground, he held her hand. Shizune blushed as she felt Kenzo touch her hand. "Come on, little Miss Princess, what do you want to do?" he said again, turning to face her with a solemn expression. Shizune started to consider what she wanted to do right now. What did she wish to accomplish? Kenzo was correct. He almost never agrees to go out and play with her, even if she has something really fun in mind. What she didn't realize was that it had been a full minute since her friend had asked her, which prompted Kenzo to begin tapping his foot on the ground repeatedly in frustration. But just as he was about to snap, the young girl burst out laughing and hugged his left arm tightly, making the boy blush even more. "You know, I don't really feel like playing right now, Kenzo-chan," she exclaimed, causing the latter to perspire. "He'd brought her out here for naught? You're kidding, right?" A wide-eyed Kenzo asked, unable to believe her because this was most likely the first time she had declined an invitation to play with him. As he previously stated, he despises acting like a child because it embarrasses him, and he also considers himself to be a teen despite being only 10 years old. "What's the deal with you? I don't believe you've ever turned down a chance to play before." "I'm not in the mood, Kenzo-chan," she admitted as she pinched his cheek. "Besides, Lady Tsunade told me not to tire myself out, so let's go get some food instead." "What are your thoughts, Kenzo-chan?" "Fine, I'm getting hungry anyway," he grumbled, his stomach churning with an intense and lonely feeling. "But, please, no more referring to me as Kenzo-chan. I don't believe I can take it any longer," he mumbled, unaware that his friend was hearing everything he said. "So, who was it who came up with his own nickname for me?" Shizune retorted, accusingly pointing her finger at him. "Kenzo-chan, wasn't it you? Who do you think is embarrassed when you say the phrase, Little Miss Princess?" Kenzo sighed, knowing there was no way out. Flashback concludes. Shizune's brief flashback left Naruto hanging, and he immediately closed his mouth as soon as he realized he was about to drool. It was a good thing the girl with him had her gaze fixed on the grass in front of her, because she would have been disgusted otherwise. "So, that's it?" he wondered, as Shizune had stopped telling him about her story after Kenzo and her started looking for a place to eat. Shizune appeared to be in a trance for a few seconds because she didn't respond to his question. He walked over to her and snapped his finger, successfully bringing her back to reality. What? What exactly is it?" she inquired, completely unaware of what was going on. "You were staring at the grass for a brief moment," Naruto responded. "Oh, sorry. I was completely focused on remembering it. Anyway, what were you saying?" She made the decision to get back on track right away. "I asked you if that was all you could remember," he said again. "You came to a halt just as you and that Kenzo guy were about to eat somewhere. Is that all you remember?" She considered it for a few seconds before nodding sadly. "Well, there's nothing we can do about it." Naruto shrugged and stood up, brushing away the dirt that was visible on his clothes. "Anyway, I think we should go back to Ba-chan and Arrow Sannin. They might be worried about us, and it's almost sundown." He extended his right hand for her to take, and she quickly accepted it, pulling herself to her feet and brushing off the dirt on her clothes. "Let's go!" exclaimed the blonde Uzumaki, leading the way back to the city. "Do you have any other questions about Kenzo?" she continued, wanting to ensure that all pertinent questions were addressed before moving on from the subject. Naruto rubbed his chin, thinking of anything else he wanted to know about the man Shizune seemed to have fallen for. He had an interesting personality, in his opinion, because he could see Sasuke's gloominess on him, but he also had the courage to make his friends happy, as he did for Shizune, and he could see his own cheerfulness in the person she was talking about. According to the girl's words, Kenzo was a mix of good and bad. He finally decided what to ask her after taking a deep breath. He knows that what he'll say next won't elicit a definitive response from her, but at the very least he'll be able to see how she fares when it comes to her faith in her friends and loved ones. "Do you think he's still alive?" he asked slowly. "What?" she asked, turning to face the blonde. "You said you hadn't seen him since you and Ba-chan left the village, right?" Shizune gave a nod. "I know you believe he is still alive, but could you at least provide a specific location where he could be found? Perhaps when Ba-chan returns to the village and becomes Hokage, we could organize a search mission for him and force him to return to the village. What do you think?" "Well, if only it were that simple, Naruto-kun." She sighed sadly. "I have no idea where he is right now, and I have no idea where he could be staying." "Just forget about it." "I'm sorry," he said, lowering his head, realizing that his plan to make her happy had backfired, resulting in the opposite. "Don't be," she shot back, her sad expression turning happy. "As I previously stated, I have faith that he is still alive and that we will meet again one day. I'll just have to wait and see." Naruto crossed his arms and smirked. "Well, little Miss Princess, that's one way to change your mood," he teased, using the nickname Kenzo gave her, prompting Shizune to smack him on the head, causing him to scream in pain. "Geez, you didn't have to do that," he grumbled, causing the girl behind him to emit a menacing aura, effectively putting the boy in his place. For a few moments, everything was quiet before the medic Nin decided to learn more about the Uzumaki. Of course, as Tsunade Senju's apprentice, she was already aware of his background, which included the identity of his parents and his birth, and she was astute enough not to bring it up. She didn't know a few things about him, including his Uchtengan, which she and Tsunade only discovered last night. He knew something personal about her. It's only fair that she knew something about him as well. "Enough about me, how about you?" Shizune asked, closely following his lead. "Pardon?" Naruto replied, unsure if he heard her correctly or if he was hallucinating. The medic Nin smirked as she crossed her arms. "I've already told you about my personal life. It's only fair that you tell me about yours as well." The blonde boy scratched his head in confusion, trying to figure out how to get out of this situation. He closed his eyes for a split second before looking at Shizune with a puzzled expression. "Is it really that important? Furthermore, you brought up the subject of your childhood friend in the first place." She started walking faster all of a sudden, beating him and taking the lead. "You better tell me something interesting, or I'll tell Tsunade-sama that you've been joining Jiraiya-sama in his research," she said, turning to face him. Shizune laughed as she continued walking, leaving Naruto frozen in place as his face paled for a few moments. Perving around with Arrow Sannin? He wondered. Never. I'd die before doing something like that. There must be some kind of mistake. He mentally screamed, shaking his head, snapping himself out of his trance. When he realized he was back in reality, he noticed Shizune was walking ahead of him while he was still standing where he had stopped earlier. Hey, wait for me," he yelled as he chased her down. "Okay, I'll tell you something about myself. Just don't tell Ba-chan." "That is not the case." He finished with anime tears falling down his cheeks. Outpost 2 of the Akatsuki hideout. Itachi and Kisame entered the outpost that was closest to Konoha. They didn't expect the Kyuubi Jinchuriki to have a dojutsu in his arsenal, especially since it was the first time they'd seen anything like it. According to an Akatsuki member, the rumors about Naruto Uzumaki in the bingo book were true, and he proved difficult to capture. Especially since he has the ability to fly around, which means he can avoid capture at any time. When they were certain that the area was completely secure, Itachi summoned the Akatsuki leader using the ring on his finger. After a few moments, a holographic figure appeared in the center of the chamber. He appeared to be wearing the same cloak as Itachi and Kisame, and he had short and spiky hair, which was unmistakably reminiscent of a certain blonde-haired boy. But it was his eyes that stood out the most. They were silver in color, with a distinctive ripple pattern that formed all around the pupil. "Report," he said stoically and emotionlessly, but Itachi and Kisame exchanged glances, unsure who should speak between them. "The mission to capture the Kyuubi Jinchuriki was a failure," Itachi said after a heated exchange with his partner. Despite their apparent failure, the figure appeared to remain calm. How could this have happened? He wondered. Our spies told us he was the Academy's loud-mouthed dead last of his class, but we were apparently wrong. He not only had backup with him at the time, but he also had a mysterious weapon that we had no idea about. And what exactly is this weapon? The figure raised an eyebrow, slightly intrigued and curious. Itachi's expression changed to one of seriousness. "He's got a dojutsu." "What?" exclaimed the figure, stunned. "Could you please explain how that is possible?" "The Sharingan, Byakugan, and my eyes are the only known dojutsus in the world, according to my last check. Don't tell me you were beaten by a weak one, because that would be absurd. Whether it's a dojutsu or not, the fact that he's just a little boy should have made things easier for you, backup or no backup." "It's not a joke," exclaimed Kisame, defending his partner. "The stupid kid can even fly in the air and disarm me of Samahata." His eyes seemed to have a unique. The figure's brows rose, thinking they weren't kidding. "You'll see for yourself. I even brought this bingo book back from the leaf," he said, showing the leader a copy of the bingo book that he and Itachi read before confronting Naruto. "This book demonstrates exactly what that brat is capable of, so just wait, you and the other members will see that we're not kidding." The figure closed his eyes and exhaled deeply. "Okay, we'll see. We'll continue this conversation once you two return to the hideout. And, regardless of what happened, you two did an excellent job of putting him and his abilities to the test. We'll be ready the next time he comes." He was about to end their conversation and walk away when Itachi's voice stopped him. Should we really leave him alone for 3 years? He worried. It would be foolish to allow him to become even stronger than he was before after such a long time, especially after seeing how he easily defeated the two of us. He was fascinated by Naruto's dojutsu because it was the first time he had seen one like it, and he was certain that no one else had it except the boy with yellow eyes. Naruto's ability to fly through the air, negate his fireball technique, and disarm Kisame of his sword demonstrated that he is not to be underestimated. "If that's the case, I'll take him down myself," he said, pausing to say one more sentence before disappearing. After all, no weakling can compete with a god. Possibly in the east. The empty land to the right of the Land of Lightning. There was a large landmass in the far eastern reaches of the ninja world, but it was simply thought of as an empty, open land inhabited by plants and animals. Except for one thing, that part was correct. It wasn't just a piece of empty land, but it was much more than that. To the people who live on it, this landmass could be considered a continent in and of itself. It was known as Stal to its inhabitants, and due to its government, it was a highly civilized country in its own right. They were far more advanced than the other countries in the shinobi world, and no one ever committed a crime. There were also no mercenaries in this land, which added to their peace. Looking deeper into the land, Stal was made up of a few places and towns, each with their own advantages. Maiidic is one of the largest areas where all of Stal's mountains and high slopes can be found. Although it mostly snows here, the people in the nearby village make a living by mining in the mountains. The precious metals and minerals they recover after each shift will then be sent to the country's capital, and they will receive more of their needs when a few carriages arrive at their village, carrying all the necessary things that they need to stay alive, such as fresh food, warm water, and comfortable clothing, among other things. The magnificent Sitomar forest was not far from Maiidic to its southeast. This was the one place in Stal that no one dared to enter, with some claiming that it was haunted and that anyone who dared to step inside would have no chance of escaping alive. Regardless, they are just rumors made up by ordinary villagers and residents because they were not entirely true. Yes, there were some who never made it out, but that was because they got lost in the thick mist that blanketed the entire forest. But it wasn't true that everyone who went inside got lost, because there was also a village nearby where people cut down trees in the forest and sent the lumber to the capital. And, as in Maiitic, they received the items they require to survive in this dangerous environment. Of course, they weren't stupid people, because after cutting down a tree, they plant another seed to replace it, which grows over time and keeps the forest alive and healthy for more than 2 decades. Normally, the village ninjas would have to accompany the simple civilians to keep them safe while they worked, with the capital providing the shinobis. Zendria was a small but thriving village further south, near the sea. Although this area appears to be the least civilized in Stal, the people who live here are unconcerned. As their primary occupation, the residents of this small town go into the waters and farm or catch various types of seafood. If they weren't lucky enough, they had really big fishing boats because they seemed to live in a place with a lot of fish, shrimp, crabs, and other creatures. After a long day of fishing in the open seas, the villagers would bring back their catch and nurse all creatures for a few days before shipping them to the capital. Similarly to Maiitic and Sitomar, they will receive food, water, and all of their other needs in exchange for sending their catches. Also, for the villagers in Zendria, living doesn't always mean work, as they would occasionally jump into the waters for a quick swim or a good family time. There were also rare occasions when ninjas sent by the capital to live in the village would assist in fishing, particularly those with knowledge of various water techniques, but most of the time, civilians had to do the majority of the work because the ninjas' main duty was the safety of everyone. The country's outermost wall, known as Italan, was located in the far western part of Stal. The location serves as both a security guard and a gatekeeper for the residents. The capital dispatched a large number of ninjas to ensure that no one entered their territory unless their leader gave them permission. If someone, or even a group of people, sails into their territory, a large number of water-type shinobis can push them back. There were over 5,000 ninjas working as guards at Italan in total, and all of them had been trained firsthand by the most successful and well-known teacher in the capital's academy. When certain people have been assigned a mission by their leader, the guards at Italan will ensure that they are properly armed and safe before sending them out. Of course, since Italan was the outermost wall, it couldn't be one if it didn't have a real wall. Over the last decade, they have constructed a steep, nearly impenetrable wall that would ensure Stal's safety. It would be a farce to attack the country from the front gate, because there was no way through the wall except through the front gate. It was impossible to climb over because shinobis were watching from above, and it would be a waste of time to circle around it because the wall stretched as far as the country's borders did. Think of the Great Wall of China. There were also hundreds of ships at the port just outside the gate for people who had a mission in the name of their leader to choose from as their transportation, and they had complete freedom in doing so. However, these weren't the only ships they had, as they also had battleships of their own in case of an enemy attack, which were all hidden somewhere, but that is a story for another time, at least. The location that connects all 4 areas of Stal was in the middle of the vast country. This was the capital, Zentarian, and it was also the home of the Uzumaki Empire, which ruled over everything related to the country. The Uzumakis were thought to have been wiped out entirely during the events of World War II, but this was not the case. Hirooki Uzumaki, the clan's last remaining commander at the time, led the remaining clansmen into hiding until they came across a large landmass that they decided to call Stal. Hirooki then built a powerful empire in this land, vowing to return someday for vengeance and to make the Uzumaki clan the most renowned and feared clan among the nations. Crowning himself as the first ever emperor, he began recruiting thousands of new ninjas in his cause while the country's culture and way of life advanced and the number of Uzumakis increased once more, and as the years passed, his empire grew more and more powerful until his untimely death. Zentarian was the most civilized and advanced region in Stal, owing primarily to the presence of the empire. Like any other empire, the emperor's word is law, and the strength of their military force is proportional to their numbers. Despite this, the civilians of Zentarian are unaware of Hirooki's plans for vengeance, and they even praise and admire him for being an ideal ruler in the eyes of many, making him a role model for other leaders, including the Kages of the 5 countries. The capital city is surrounded by a ring of tall, skyscraper-like castles. There are 2 to 3 story buildings and row homes that line the town's streets, as well as bridges that connect one side to the other and balconies for viewing. Finally, the emperor and his family are housed in a massive palace in the capital, which has many towers and sections. Along the way, there were several restaurants, shops, and food stands, as well as a few playgrounds for the kids to enjoy. Zentarian's academy was located near the castle. It was the only academy in the entire country, but it did not disappoint, as it is known to have taught and trained many of the Empire's strongest ninjas, and it was also a safe haven for children, Uzumaki or not. The second emperor, Jujiro Uzumaki, was deep in thought within the massive castle's walls. He was currently waiting for his son, whom he had requested earlier. Jujiro was the eldest son of Hirooki Uzumaki, the first emperor, and after his father died, he assumed the throne because he was the heir. He was a fair-skinned man with distinctive red hair that covered the frames of his face, an Uzumaki trait. He had green eyes and was dressed in the emperor's usual robes. It was brown and reached all the way down to his legs. It was covered in jewel trimmings and had a large letter, U, sewed on the back. He was dressed inside in a purple buttoned-up shirt, gray pants, and black boots. He lacked a crown, but he did have a distinctive red ring on his right hand to represent his authority. His siblings live peacefully in one of the buildings in Zentarian, while his wife abandoned him 3 years ago due to a hasty decision he had to make. They continue to pay him visits because they are always welcome in the palace. He, like his father, was well liked by the people of Stall, and they are grateful that he followed in his father's footsteps. But, unbeknownst to them, he had other plans. Aside from Hirooki's goals of exacting vengeance on the 5 countries and establishing the Uzumaki clan as supreme, Jujiro had a new goal in mind, which emerged shortly after his father's death. When he heard the door to the throne room open, Jujiro was jolted out of his reverie. Haruko Uzumaki entered the room, his face emotionless, his gaze fixed on his father. Haruko was Juhiro's only son, which meant he was next in line for the throne. He was 28 years old and graduated from the academy at such a young age. Haruko, like his father, went through the journey of becoming a genin, chunin, and junin. However, he was able to complete all 3 ranks before the age of 30, making him a notable prodigy. His mother wanted to leave with her son, but as the sole heir to the throne, Haruko cannot leave the empire. He was a tall, fair-skinned man with short, spiky yellow hair and brown eyes, and he was dressed in a plain white shirt and black pants, which seemed inappropriate for someone of his stature. The boy appeared to be lazy most of the time, ignoring everyone who wanted to lecture him on what to do once he became emperor, and not caring in the least. Haruko came to a complete stop in front of his father. "Is there any reason you wanted to see me, father?" he asked, his voice monotone as usual. "Are you lazing around again?" he asked solemnly, giving his son a knowing look. Haruko simply shrugged his shoulders in response, causing Jujiro to sigh and shake his head in disappointment. "Son, you are aware that you will be the next emperor, correct? It's better to spend the rest of your free time learning more about how to properly manage everything, because if you don't know how to run even the capital, this entire place will collapse. You must understand because I went through the same training before becoming who I am today. What's the matter with you?" he snapped back, rolling his eyes at his father. "It's not like you'll die tomorrow and I'll take over your chair in an instant. Besides, you have a long time before you reach retirement age, so why should I be concerned now? And how difficult could it be for me to accept the role of emperor? More than you can possibly imagine. You'd have to ensure our society's well-being as well as the safety of everyone in Stall. True, you have the 7 to assist you, but it is the emperor who does the majority of the work. Not to mention the Empire's 3 objectives, he pointed his index finger at Haruko, but the blonde teen turned away to avoid seeing it. You're lucky I'm busy these days. Otherwise, I'd be lecturing you right now, which means you can't escape your lessons, mister. Yeah, he said dismissively to his father. Is there anything else I can help you with, as I mentioned earlier? Obviously, you want to tell me something important other than scolding me for being myself. So, father, can we get on with it? I'm ready to go back to my room and sleep. Jujiro crossed his arms and exhaled deeply. Thank you for reminding me. I need you to do something for me, he said, drawing Haruko's attention to himself. Could you please call Hiro, Fuko, and Kenzo to the throne room? I need to talk to the 3 of them about something important that involves the gateway in Uzu. This caused his son's eyes to widen for a few moments as he realized what he was saying. Being the Emperor's son had its advantages, so he knew his fair share of plans from his father. Haruko regained his composure and cleared his throat, refocusing his attention on the situation. Why me? You could have had them call those 3 for you, in a bored tone, he said. Because I want you to get out of your room and do something different for a change, his father said sternly. For a change, you should get out of your bedroom and do something else. When Akira has free time, she does something other than lays around. As the heir to the throne, you must learn to do things on your own before you can become emperor. Now get going, and don't even try to pass it on to one of our servants, because I'll find out. If you do, you will not be served dinner tonight. Is that clear? Despite the fact that he was clearly not in the mood, Haruko knew he had no choice. He huffed and closed his eyes. Alright, I'll do it. He then turned around and began to walk away, but stopped to look at his father and say one more thing. However, please do not bother me again for the rest of the day. Juhiro's gaze remained fixed on his son, and he continued to stare at him. Haruko had a lot on his mind as he walked away. On the surface, he appears to be lazy and is described as a person who gets bored easily, but people are unaware that this was merely a coincidence. He was actually smarter than anyone could have predicted. In fact, he was well versed in how to become Stahl's proper emperor. He just appears bored by the subject. He also had his own plans that he would carry out once he ascended to the throne, and if he didn't want people to know that he was actually knowledgeable about Stahl's government, it would only mean that he had something very sinister in mind. I will be emperor, father. You won't see it coming. And my darling Kushina-chan will be my empress. He thought to himself, an evil smile covering his face. Later. Jujiro waited patiently for the 3 people he had summoned to his room while he was thinking about the future of the entire empire once they succeeded in their overall plan to take over the major countries for vengeance, and he didn't even notice that a few minutes had passed. He was finally pulled out of his deep thoughts when the door at the far end of the room opened, with 3 people stepping inside. The 3 consisted of 2 men who appeared to be in their 20s and a woman who appeared to be in her 20s as well. They approached the emperor at a normal pace, each with a neutral expression on their faces. The bespectacled adolescent walking in the middle was of average height. He also had fair skin and long light blue hair that reached his nape, with uneven bangs framing the sides of his face. He also had distinctive red eyes, which gave him the appearance of a Uchiha due to the resemblance to the clan's Sharingan. He was dressed in a high-collared blue trench coat with white borders, with a white dress shirt underneath and a black tie that fit his personality. He had a long brown leather belt tied around his waist twice, ending in 2 knots in front of him because the coat had no buttons or zipper to close it. Because it had a high collar, the top of his shirt and tie were visible. His coat's cuffs appeared to be larger than usual as well. To top it all off, he was dressed in black dress pants and dark boots. His expression indicated that he was serious at the time. The woman to his left had a curvy figure and a somewhat revealing outfit. She had wavy, blonde hair that reached her nape, which is typical of the Uzumaki clan. Her hair is a little messy, which makes it appear spiky. She has bangs down the right side of her face that curve to the side, concealing her right eye underneath. She was a fair-skinned, average-height girl with brown eyes. Her face was emotionless, which suited her quiet demeanor. She was dressed in a brown bandeau with a V-like strap around her neck and a brown choker with a shiny, white pearl in the center. She was also wearing brown striped capri pants and plain sandals. Brown bracers were also tied around both of her forearms with a simple lace. She finished her outfit with a light brown jacket, but she wasn't wearing it normally. Instead, its sleeves were tied around her waist, and the rest of it hung freely behind her. This exposed the front of her legs but concealed them from behind, giving the impression that she was wearing a skirt. The final one was a tall, tanned man with spiky brown hair that pointed all the way up, symbolizing his fiery personality. He had slanted purple slit pupil eyes, similar to those of a snake. In addition to his reptilian features, he had pointed ears and a rather flat nose that was barely visible from a distance, as well as large prominent canine teeth that resembled snake fangs. His outfit included a high-collared white coat with a golden fur border, 2 red armbands on each of his sleeves, and a blue-colored interior. He wore a dark blue shirt underneath his coat, along with a pair of dark crimson leather pants held up by a black belt, and simple brown shoes. When they arrived at the bottom of the stairs leading to Juhiro's throne, the three came to a halt. They all knelt on one knee and bowed to the emperor at the same time. In reality, these three were not ordinary Jujiro servants. They are all members of the group formed by Jujiro during the early days of his reign, and they most likely have the most authority in stall after the emperor. The group was dubbed the Storm 7 Feet or simply, the Seven. An Eye of Storm is a general term for a specific member. The group was formed to assist the emperor in managing the empire as well as to ensure that everything going on within their country was going well in order to reduce the leader's workload. Of course, they also serve as the emperor's bodyguards in the event that Stall is attacked, and each member has a specific role to play. All of the members are given their own freedom to roam the entire country, with a few openly refusing or declining direct orders from the emperor. The group was made up of the strongest ninjas in Stall, if not the world, and these three are just a few of them. All of them were recruited by Jujiro himself. "You summoned us, Your Highness?" asked the teen in the middle, not looking up to face their leader. Hiro Uzumaki, also known as the Frost Commander, was the name of this man. Despite being only 18 years old, Jujiro chose him to be the Storm 7's leader, and he was more than qualified. He is also known for being a strict individual who places orders and respect above all else. Due to his militaristic nature, while he is careful not to overstep his own bounds, he clearly expresses his displeasure if the actions of any of his associates, whether another member of the Seven or the Emperor himself, are deemed to be out of keeping with their position in the Empire. Based on his epithet, he is in charge of managing the Empire's military, as well as his uncanny and extraordinary abilities with the Bloodline, Ice Release, Heighten. Yes, the Emperor exhaled as he gazed at the three eyes of Storm. "We need to discuss our plan of action against the Leaf Village once they notice the gateway in Uzushiogakure," he said, drawing a surprised look from the three. "I know it's still too early to make plans," he said quickly, noticing their expressions. "However, the solar eclipse will occur soon, within a month at most, and they must take the bait in order to be destroyed from within. According to our spies in the Land of Fire, Konoha is currently looking for a new Hokage. When their new leader takes over, that will be our chance to get their attention." "Is that why you specifically requested us, Your Highness?" Hiro continued, pushing his glasses back up and maintaining a stern expression on his face. "Correct," he said, leaning in closer and taking a deep breath. "I'd like you three to travel to the Land of Whirlpools and then to the village of Uzu. Use any of your techniques to wreak havoc on the area, but make sure that your jutsus does not touch the gateway that we built there beforehand, as this will ruin our entire plan. This will act as a sort of distress signal for the nearby village. If other people enter Uzu, simply scare them away so they have to seek assistance. Because Konoha is home to the last Uzumakis in the 5 countries, you can bet they'll be the ones to visit Uzushiogakure, as we need to know who they are. I'll send a messenger hawk to the 3 of you who say so once our spies have confirmed that Konoha will respond to the brewing trouble. Surely that isn't all we have to do in the land of whirlpools? Asked the Frost Commander. Because of his strict demeanor, he had to ensure that the orders given to him were clear and understandable so that there would be few to no mistakes once they got to the real deal. We can now move on to the second part of our plan. Jujiro reclined on his throne. After you receive the messenger hawk I sent you, I want you to go to the southeast region of the Land of Fire, specifically the route that shinobis take to reach Uzushiogakure. Your task for that time will be to wait for the team sent by the Leaf to investigate the Land of Whirlpools, and once they arrive, engage them in a short fight so that we can learn how strong the ninjas of Konoha are, as well as gather information about the Uzumakis who live there. If my prediction is correct, the last member of our clan to live there, Kushina Uzumaki, gave birth to a child a decade ago. If her child becomes one of the genin ninjas sent on the mission to investigate Uzushiogakure, our work will be cut in half. Do you mean we're going to capture that kid if he's the one sent by their leader? With a raised eyebrow, the man on Hiro's right side inquired. His name was Kenzo Uzumaki, and he was known as the Man of 1,000 Years because of his unique ability to hear another person's thoughts, which is a very different type of telepathy. He was a former Konoha shinobi who was involved in various experiments carried out by the S-class criminal, Orochimaru, and as a result of those tests, he gained reptilian features that altered his appearance, ranging from his eyes to his teeth to his ears. He also gained enhanced hearing as a result of the experiments, to the point where he could hear a person's very soul. Although he appears to be calm on the outside, he is actually a bit sadistic, showing little to no mercy to his opponents because he enjoys torturing them. Despite this, he is aware of his own limitations and will not hesitate to retreat when confronted by an opponent far superior to him. Underneath his tough exterior, he genuinely cares about his comrades and friends, and is willing to obey orders from the other Eyes of Storm as long as he is treated with the same respect by his peers. Jujiro tapped his fingers on the throne's arm. I was getting there. No, you must not capture that Uzumaki or kill any of his comrades under any circumstances. I want you 3 to fight them because I want to see how strong they are in comparison to the 7 when we carry out the invasion someday. But I do want you to learn everything you can about him and Kushina Uzumaki. One of our other goals is to rebuild and reunite the Uzumaki clan, and we need both him and his mother to join us in this effort. Furthermore, Kushina Uzumaki has established herself as one of the strongest kunoichis in the 5 countries, and it would be an honor to welcome her here. As for the other genin, you must avoid doing anything that could seriously harm any of them, as this will draw attention to you 3, he mumbled the next part in a worried tone. The last thing we need is the villages putting a price on your heads, he continued to speak normally after his brief sentence. Anyway, just pretend you 3 are regular mercenaries, okay? They all nodded at the same time, but Kenzo chuckled and said something under his breath. I don't think we'll look anything like normal once we fight them, though. He then stopped in his little mumble when he noticed Hiro giving him a serious look, which caused him to clear his throat and act highly in his place, which was completely opposite of what he was doing. Because Hiro was the 7's chief, he knew he had to show his respect due to the Frost Commander's militaristic attitude. Geez, why is that dude like that in the first place? He mused to himself. Hiro's soul is as cold as ice. He observed, noting Hiro's personality. Do you have any further questions about this mission? Because dinner is about to be prepared in an hour, now is a good time to ask. As the woman beside Hiro cleared her throat, he spoke up. This particular action drew the attention of everyone in the room, including the guards who were standing nearby. What mode of transportation should we take to reach the Land of Whirlpools, Your Majesty? She asked neutrally. Fuko Uzumaki was known as the Woman of the Shadows, for her extraordinary but terrifying ability to transform herself into a shadow in order to control other shadows. She is known for her quiet demeanor, preferring to speak only when she is in the presence of the emperor or in critical situations. She is known to have a very calm demeanor, despite the fact that childish and other tedious objects or people can irritate her greatly. Because of her silent nature, she doesn't waste time listening to her opponent's words and will finish them off as soon as she is given orders or desires to. Her quiet demeanor stems from her mother's death, which affected her so deeply that she would prefer not to speak again. Despite this, she is loyal to both the Emperor and her fellow Eyes of Storm, and she is willing to obey orders whenever they are given to her. I was thinking of Kenzo's dragon carrying the three of you all the way to Uzu, but I was going to ask him first. He looked to his left at the brunette. Do you mind if Hiro and Fuko ride alongside you on your dragon, friend? He inquired. The two other Eyes of Storm also looked at their comrade, so he was the center of attention right now. I don't think so, Kenzo replied honestly. Satsuki isn't used to carrying anyone other than me, but I think she'll be fine. However, Your Highness, I doubt she can carry the three of us for a long distance. She may tire easily, and she hasn't yet reached adulthood. Please accept my apologies, he muttered something sad, but Jujiro ignored him. Excellent. Then I believe you three should simply board one of our ships to get there. I'll let you choose any ship you think is appropriate for the mission, but I'd advise against using the large ones. If you decide to captain a ship as large as the Academy, you'd better be wary of any enemy out there, because it's a 2-week journey from here to Uzushiogakure, assuming no storms along the way. As I previously stated, the villages putting a price on your heads is the last thing we need right now. Is this all clear? Yes, Your Highness, Hiro and Kenzo both said at the same time, while Fuko simply nodded. Then that concludes this meeting, the Emperor said as he rose from his throne. Let's go to the dining hall and wait for dinner. We should inform the other Eyes of everything we discussed today so they know what to do when the time comes. Highness, if it doesn't bother you, I have one more question, said Kenzo, attracting Jujiro's attention, as he was now staring at him. To be polite, but why did you choose the three of us to go on this mission? Not to be lazy, but is there a specific reason why we? Your Highness, the other Eyes and the two Uchihas down the street are also options. The Emperor simply smiled and softly chuckled. To answer your question, the rest of the 7 are unable to participate for a variety of reasons. Baku is busy training ninjas at the academy, and you know how much that old man enjoys teaching. He paused for a split second to laugh at himself. The Empire's trade and economic routes could not possibly survive without Raiji, so he is also eliminated. Toshiro is stubborn, and he'll probably wander around the Land of Fire, but I can't let anyone see him flying through the sky. Akira is still a child in my eyes, so sending her on a dangerous mission like this could endanger her, even if her abilities are very unique and quite powerful. Jujiro, as emperor of an empire dedicated to vengeance, has a soft spot for the people he considers family, which includes all of Stall's inhabitants as well as the 7. But, Your Highness, what about the Uchiha twins? Hiro inquired, his curiosity growing. They are too young to get involved in this conflict, Hiro. He replied, his expression becoming more serious as he considered the two Uchihas who lived in an apartment not far from the palace. Even if they are Baku's students, it is too soon for them to fight for our cause. Perhaps in a few years, we will be able to summon them here and confront them about what we fight for and why we stand in the first place. He turned his gaze to the 3 Eyes of Storm in front of him, and they all nodded in approval of his decision. Now let's get moving, I'm hungry, he joked as Hiro, Fuko, and Kenzo stood up and headed to the door, Jujiro close behind. Hiragizawa Castle 6 days later. Orochimaru and his apprentice, Kabuto Yakushi, arrived early in the morning at the site of the castle that they destroyed a week ago when they met up with the former's teammate, Tsunade Senju, in this city. The sun shone brightly in the sky, and they waited patiently for the Slug Princess to appear. Orochimaru was confident that because he had Tsunade as putty in his hands, she would agree to the deal because she wanted nothing more than to see her brother and lover again. Orochimaru smirked as he noticed Tsunade in the distance. He never doubted that she would refuse his offer and would do anything to be with her dear loved ones again. He was even surprised that she came alone, as her apprentice had not been with her the first time they met a few days before. It confirmed his prediction that Tsunade abandoned Shizune in order to be with Dan and Nawaki again. However, he had no idea that it was all a coincidence, and that 3 mysterious ninjas were watching him and Kabuto at the time. "Have you made your decision, Tsunade?" Orochimaru inquired as Tsunade came to a halt in front of him. Tsunade nodded, lowering her head and pretending to be sad. "Will you really return your arms if I give them to you?" she asked, choking back tears. "Or were you just lying about it so you could get what you wanted from me?" she spit out, furious. Orochimaru shook his head. "I can bring them back as long as you have 2 living sacrifices. Even though I am known to lie most of the time, Tsunade, I keep some of my own promises," he comforted her. "And if you can heal my arms, I'll be eternally grateful." "Fine," she exhaled as she walked slowly towards him. "Give me your arms," the snake Sannin said, taking a step forward and extending both of his arms. Tsunade took a deep breath and flexed her knuckles before stretching them forward, hovering above Orochimaru's, and began glowing green as soon as she arrived. The latter grinned evilly as he realized his plans to destroy Konoha would be revived, while Kabuto, who was behind him, gasped as he realized what the medic nin was up to. He pulled out a kunai and expertly threw it between Orochimaru and Tsunade's arms, severing the connection. "Kabuto, what is the significance of this?" Orochimaru hissed, furious that his one chance at regaining both of his arms had been ruined. No less than by his apprentice. "Orochimaru-sama, what she was doing a while ago was not a medical technique," he quickly defended his actions. "Actually, it's the inverse. It's a highly lethal technique that looks similar to the mystical palm, but it poisons the target, resulting in death in a matter of minutes." Orochimaru's eyes widened for a moment before he let out a resounding growl as he explained. "Orochimaru and Kabuto vs Tsunade, Jiraiya, Naruto, and Shizune XXX. Turning back to his former teammate, he let out a sarcastic chuckle before continuing to speak. "How cunning of you, Tsunade. To be able to get under our skins with that fake expression of yours," he said, as Tsunade's expression changed from sad to serious. "I suppose this means our deal is off? It's a shame, because I would have brought Dan and Nawaki back after you healed me. This implies that you have sided with Konoha. Which implies that Jiraiya-kun must be present. As long as I'm alive, I won't let the 2 of you leave this city until you're both as good as dead," she growled as she jumped in the air, bringing her heel crashing down on the ground, creating a large crater. But Orochimaru and Kabuto managed to jump away to a nearby wall at the last second, saving their skins. "You want me to fight her?" Kabuto asked, looking at Orochimaru, who simply nodded in response. She looked up to see Orochimaru and Kabuto standing at the top of a wall in front of her, realizing she hadn't gotten any of them. "I'll make sure there's no trace of you 2 snakes left at the end of the day," exclaimed Tsunade as she removed her green coat and tossed it to the ground. She then dashed towards the wall and punched it so hard that it collapsed on impact. The 2 men atop it jumped away once more to avoid becoming entangled in the rubble. "Let's go somewhere with more space," said the snake Sannin, and Kabuto nodded as the 2 of them began to run away. Plan B, then, Tsunade thought as she cast a quick glance behind her. "I won't let you 2 get away," she screamed as she chased the 2 Auto Nin out of town. Tsunade and Orochimaru then went on a wild goose chase, and the former was successful in her plan to get the fight out of the city, as they eventually reached an open field with no other people in sight. They finally stopped running when they realized they were no longer in the city, and Tsunade had to catch her breath to regain her composure. She may be as tough as nails, but her age takes its toll on her stamina. "This is the end for you, Orochimaru," she said as she regained her strength. "I highly doubt it," Orochimaru replied with a smirk. With that, the Slug Princess launched her assault from above, but Kabuto and his master successfully evaded her every time. This went on for several minutes, and Tsunade's monstrous strength created many craters in the process. Orochimaru grimaced as he stood atop a large rock, seeing his teammate catch her breath after many failed attempts to hit them. "Looks like you're out of breath, Tsunade. What are you going to do now?" he asked Kabuto, who jumped back on the ground and knelt down. "The time has come." She struggled to her feet while breathing heavily, still held down from her previous attempts to obtain them. The bespectacled man, who was also breathing heavily, began to speak. "Taijutsu is not my forte, but..." Kabuto then closed his eyes and took a small pill from the small bag attached to his waist, popping it into his mouth and chewing it down. "A food supplement?" Tsunade reflected as he examined Orochimaru's apprentice more closely. After completely swallowing the pill, Kabuto began quickly going through a few hand seals, which caused Tsunade's eyes to widen as she realized what he was about to do. "Tiger horse rabbit rat dog." He then opened his eyes as his chakra began to cover his hands, ending in a sharp tip at the end. "This kid is also a medical ninja," she exclaimed as Kabuto abruptly vanished from his place. "Damn," she exclaimed aloud in her head as she leapt into the air to avoid Kabuto's attack from underground. She then brought her fist crashing down to the ground in an attempt to crush him to pieces, but since Orochimaru's apprentice had consumed a food pill earlier, he had regained his original speed, whereas she was still barely holding on with her current state. She then chased him down with a flying kick that easily destroyed a rock, but Kabuto was able to easily dodge by ducking, and as a result, she ended up hitting another rock, but instead of pulverizing it, she rebounded off it to get back into the fight. Tsunade was taken aback when the silver-haired man abruptly left his position. She then looked to the right and saw Kabuto smirking as he approached her, and once within range of her, he delivered a simple hit to Tsunade's right arm and thigh, causing the latter to writhe in pain. She then kicked him in the back, sending him stumbling back, but Kabuto was able to pull himself back up to his feet. She was able to move again when she felt an intense pain in her arm and thigh, causing her to hiss in response. "He got my muscle," she exclaimed, clutching her arm. "I only lightly severed your upper arm's bicep and your thigh's rectus muscle," Kabuto explained as he rose to his feet and approached her. "You won't be able to use your full potential now." "A chakra scalpel," she remarked, her gaze narrowed at him. "How come you didn't target the arteries instead?" Kabuto raised his head, allowing the sunlight to reflect off his glasses. "But you can't expect me to make a long, delicate scalpel in the heat of battle that can reach the arteries or heart muscles right now, can you?" Nonetheless, he rushed back towards her, starting an intense slugfest between the two of them. "It wouldn't be a problem if I targeted my opponent's neck." After being swept off his feet, he quickly got back up and hit Tsunade square in the chest, causing her to kneel in pain and struggle to breathe. "Shit, my lungs got hit," she cursed as she panted in exhaustion. "This next attack won't kill you," he boasted, closing his eyes and smirking at Tsunade's helpless form. "But it will be enough to bring you down." Before he knew it, he felt a quick pain in his neck that caused his eyes to snap open in surprise, and he was dragged face first down the ground. "She's extraordinary," he thought to himself as he sat back down and noticed the woman dropping to her knees, coughing loudly. One should not be able to move because of breathing difficulties. "I think I'll have to rough her up a little more." Kabuto immediately recovered and attempted to pull out a kunai, but the moment he moved his right hand, his left leg moved instead. His eyes widened in surprise as he considered his current situation. "Even when I move my hand, my leg moves. Wait, don't tell me this is a..." He was interrupted in his thoughts when Tsunade appeared directly in front of him. "You little..." she yelled angrily as she delivered a devastating punch to his right cheek, sending him flying back several meters, but not as far as she can when she's at full strength. "At my current state, this appears to be the extent of my power. Damn it, where are those three?" she mused while breathing heavily. Kabuto tried to stand up, but every time he moved one part of his body, another part moved in response. Orochimaru, who was nearby and watching their fight, narrowed his eyes at the situation. I see, so that's what she did to him, he realized, realizing what had gone wrong with his apprentice. Why you didn't go for the muscles? Said the bespectacled man as he struggled to get up. Is it the nerves, am I right? He inquired. I'll give you that. It appears you've realized. Yes, you are correct. It is the nerves. Tsunade replied as she struggled to keep her balance. I converted chakra into electricity, which created an electrical field and poured it directly into your nerves. The nervous system, or nerves, are responsible for communication between the brain and the body, Orochimaru explained in his mind, taking note of what Tsunade did. Both sides' messages are sent via electric signals. Tsunade jumbled all of those signals, changing the receiving body part of the action sent by the brain at breakneck speed. Excellent strategy from her. Kabuto looked at the slug princess, noting how strong and perceptive Tsunade was. Even though she hasn't fought in years, she doesn't seem to have changed much. Is this the legendary Sannin's power? Tsunade then created her own hand seals, which caused her hands to glow green and allowed her to begin healing herself. Healing techniques use a lot of chakra. But I'll have to hold out at least until Jiraiya, Shizune, and the brat arrive. But in this condition, it'll take a few minutes for me to fully heal. As he analyzed his current situation, the Auto Nin in front of her narrowed his eyes before closing them. He then tried to move his right hand again, which caused his left leg to move. If my right hand moves, my left leg takes over as the receiver. He then experimented with different parts of his body, quickly noting what moves in place of the original body part. My left ankle moves to my right shoulder. My right leg into my left hand. In less than a minute, he had quickly adapted to his situation and was able to move the majority of his body without difficulty. It's difficult. But I've already accomplished more than 80% of what I want to move in my body. He then blinked and scowled at Tsunade. Don't mess with me. He mumbled, pulling a kunai from the small bag around his waist. With this low level, he twirled the small weapon in his finger before tightly grasping it. Jutsu! He exclaimed, then leapt to his feet and dashed towards the shocked slug princess. What? How can he recover in such a short time? She wondered. You're afraid of blood, aren't you? He cried, driving the kunai on the ground as he ran towards her before raising his weapon into the air and preparing to attack. I'm going to show you a lot right now. He then brought the kunai down on her, but a flash of yellow stopped him in his tracks. Naruto Uzumaki stood in front of Tsunade, his Uchtengan flaring, his right arm blocking Kabuto's attacking arm. Jiraiya and Shizune appeared alongside the blonde boy, standing defensively in front of the slug princess, and Orochimaru and Kabuto's eyes widened. We meet again, Kabuto, said Naruto, spitting out his opponent's name with venom in his voice as his right arm grabbed Kabuto's before delivering a straight punch to the auto gut, Nin's knocking him back. I knew there was something wrong with you the moment I saw you talking with Gaara's teacher before the final exams. This time, Orochimaru, blood will not hold me back. Tsunade stated smugly. How are these odds? She asked, smirking at her former teammate as she worked to heal her internal injuries. Shizune was assisting her in rejuvenation when she looked to her right, causing the woman to smile at her apprentice. How kind of Naruto-kun to join us on such a beautiful day. Orochimaru said with a sick smile as he approached Kabuto, before assisting his apprentice in getting to his feet. Well, don't you think this just made things more interesting? Not only do I have the Slug Princess, but also Konoha's Rainmaker. Such a wonderful day, indeed, he said, and Naruto simply scoffed. Orochimaru, Jiraiya said to his former teammate. As usual, you have an evil look on your face. Tell me, is this really how you're going to get your arms? Tsunade pushed him to the side as she charged towards their two enemies, cutting him off mid-sentence. Enough from you, Jiraiya. You seem to have forgotten that you three were late. She smiled as she spoke, her full strength restored. Orochimaru simply bit his thumb to draw blood and showed it to Tsunade, which caused the woman to freeze in place because it was her main fear after all, causing the snake-like man to grin evilly. Taking advantage, Kabuto drew blood from his master's thumb and quickly weaved a few hand signs, clearly aware that they couldn't win this fight without some help. Boar, dog, bird, monkey, ram, Kuchios no jutsu, yelled Kabuto, prompting Shizune to rush forward and grab Tsunade's arm before pulling her away from the duo. Then a cloud of smoke exploded in front of them, obscuring Orochimaru and his apprentice beneath. After a few seconds, when the majority of the smoke had cleared, the four could hear hissing sounds coming from their location. Tsunade shook her head a few times to break out of her trance. When the smoke cleared, two massive snakes appeared in front of them, with Kabuto and Orochimaru atop each head. Alright, here's the plan, Jiraiya said as he prepared to fight. This doesn't involve anyone charging in without thinking, and I was referring to you about that, Tsunade. He paused for a moment to give the woman a knowing look, but she only rolled her eyes in response. Anyway, Tsunade and I will go take care of Orochimaru. He's a dangerous opponent even without his arms. Shizune, go with Naruto and take care of his little child, and then feel free to join us in the fight. Do you get it? Everyone nodded in agreement with his plan. Now let's go, he exclaimed as he and Tsunade dashed towards their former friend, leaving Shizune with Naruto. They took their gaze away from the two Sannin and noticed the giant snake Kabuto was riding slithering towards them. Naruto turned to Shizune and began speaking right away. Can you put up a poison cloud, Shizune-ni-chan? I'm going to need some cover to catch him off guard. Stay away for a while until I bring him down, along with that giant snake. Are you insane? You'll get caught in it, she said, looking at Naruto incredulously. No, I will not. Trust me, he said, flashing a thumbs up, prompting the girl to sigh before nodding. Shizune then took a deep breath and kneaded the chakra within her. Dokugiri, she screamed, before exhaling a large cloud of poison from her mouth, covering the entire area in front of the snake. The huge creature came to a halt as a result of this action, and Kabuto decided to simply wait it out until the poison dissipated. He thought to himself, breathing out a cloud of poison made from your own chakra is nothing compared to this snake, he exclaimed triumphantly. He kept acting confident until he felt a presence behind him and turned around to see Naruto flying straight at him at full speed. He sidestepped to evade and activated his chakra scalpels almost immediately, reacting instinctively. The yellow light that had been covering Naruto's body vanished as soon as he landed on the snake's head. Naruto turned around, realizing he hadn't caught his opponent, to see Kabuto about to hit him from behind. The boy rolled to the side and activated his meteor on both hands, giving him his own weapon against Kabuto. He knew how dangerous it would be if he got hit by those scalpels because he was watching from the sidelines earlier. Following that, the two engaged in a fast and furious taijutsu battle, striking each other strike for strike. Naruto would punch Kabuto's arms away after every attack he attempted on his opponent's body parts. This went on for about a minute until Naruto caught both of his hands in his own and interlocked their fingers. This shocked Kabuto because the blonde was able to touch his hands without being harmed in the process. How? He tried to ask, but he was cut off when Naruto drew him in for a massive headbutt, leaving the two of them dizzy but unharmed because they were both wearing forehead protectors. It also caused Naruto to release Kabuto's grip on the snake's head, causing the bespectacled man to fall to the ground. Before crashing to the ground, he noticed that the poison cloud Shizune had expelled earlier had not completely dissipated, causing him to hold his breath in order to stay safe. Meanwhile, Naruto collapsed to his knees, attempting to regain his composure by shaking his head to relieve his dizziness. When he felt something wet dripping down his brow, he raised his right hand to see what it was, and mentally cursed himself when he saw it was blood. Ah, shit. He cursed himself before getting back up on his feet and wiping the remaining blood from his brow. He then walked over to the snake's head and saw Shizune standing by a rock far beyond the poison fog she had created to keep herself safe. Shizune Nichan. He screamed at the top of his lungs, and he was lucky that she heard him, albeit barely, which prompted her to walk closer so she could hear him clearly. Of course, she made sure to avoid the cloud of poison that was finally dissipating. Can you keep him at bay for a little while? First and foremost, I need to get rid of this snake. He exclaimed. Okay, no worries. Shizune screamed back, pulling out her own kunai and charging towards Kabuto's figure on the ground. She waited a few seconds for the poison cloud to dissipate completely before charging towards the fallen man, determined to finish the job. But, much to her surprise, as soon as she got close to him, Kabuto jumped back to his feet and went to attack Shizune first, but the girl managed to block his kunai with her own. She was then forced to defend herself when Kabuto began attacking her without even giving her a chance to recover, but she appears to have her own heightened senses, deflecting the man's strikes through instincts. When Naruto saw the impending fight between Shizune and Kabuto, he immediately performed the clone seal so that he could be done with the snake and assist the girl in her battle. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Shadow Clone Jutsu. He yelled, summoning 7 clones in front of him. Come on guys, let's go take care of this slithery situation, said the original Naruto, to which all the clones nodded. Let's get started. The original continued, his body covered in yellow light as he flew up into the air. Yeah. All the clones exclaimed as they took off with their meteor. They all performed the same hand seals and spoke in unison while hovering above the massive reptile. Tiger Horse Monkey Ram Dragon, Uchtengan, Dosei no Ringu. Space Release. Saturn Rings, they all screamed, creating 2 energy discs on each of their palms and then throwing the discs that they created towards the snake's body, causing various explosions on the reptile and making it hiss in pain while looking upwards. We got its attention. Now let's send him back to the summon realm, exclaimed the original as he flew down, closely followed by all of the clones. He then went to the snake's head, while the rest of the clones landed at the body, weaving yet another batch of hand seals. Uchtengan. Sinaru Bakuf. Screamed the clones, creating 2 energy beams on their hands and throwing them all towards the snake beneath their feet. The massive reptile hisses in pain once more, and one of the clones speaks up. There's more where that came from. He yelled as he and the other clones prepared to launch another round of energy beams at the snake. The snake thrashed side to side in an attempt to shake all the clones off its body for the second time, but they managed to stay atop it. They decided to go for a final round and fired another batch of energy beams in an attempt to drive the snake back to the summon realm. The snake began rolling side to side as soon as they threw the last batch of energy beams, successfully shaking all the clones off its body, but there was one short. The initial Naruto remained atop its head, waiting for it to stop moving so he could make his move. The snake finally calmed down after a few seconds, but it had no idea that the clones were just the beginning. Naruto quickly fashioned a set of hand seals to take advantage of its pained state. Tiger Ox Hare Monkey Rat 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 Rat. Now open your mouth wide, he exclaimed, punching the top of the snake's head, causing it to hiss loudly and open its mouth wide, revealing its large fangs inside. In an instant, all of Naruto's clones flew in front of the snake's mouth and quickly went through the same hand seals they did in the first technique. Uchtengan. Dosei no Kyodai na Ringu. Space Release. Saturn's giant rings, they all said, creating larger energy discs than before. While the snake's mouth was still open, all of Naruto's clones flew right inside it, throwing all of the energy discs they had created inside, causing the massive reptile to roll all over the ground from the intense pain it was feeling inside. As soon as he noticed the original Naruto on top of its head, he landed on the ground. After a few more seconds of thrashing around, the snake's body couldn't take the explosions any longer and vanished in a cloud of smoke. Naruto grinned before wiping the blood that was still dripping from his brow. As yellow light began to coat his body, he turned his attention to Kabuto and Shizune. "Kurama, can you give me a boost when I'm low?" he asked the tailed beast within him. "Yeah, sure Kit," he replied, not even bothering to rise from his deep slumber, causing Naruto to snicker. "What exactly do you expect from us?" Shizune demanded as she blocked Kabuto's next horizontal strike. She was doing quite well on her own, though she could tell her adversary wasn't being serious at the moment, which worried her a little because she had seen earlier how he managed to hold his own against Tsunade. She was caught off guard earlier when Kabuto awoke and attacked her, but she regained her composure and returned her focus to the fight. Same as Orochimaru-sama said, he smirked as he continued to attack without even giving her a chance to counterattack. "We simply want Tsunade to heal both of Orochimaru's arms. Sama's will then proceed to destroy Konoha. Like hell we're going to let that happen when Tsunade-sama is going to be the new Hokage." She yelled angrily, leaping to her feet as she felt him about to sweep her off her feet.
She then tried to attack him from above, but Kabuto deflected it with the metal pad behind his right glove.
He then pushed her kunai away and attempted to stab her in the chest, but she kicked his attacking hand away. "Look, I know you're not taking this battle seriously, so when will you?" she asked as she locked blades with her opponent. It was now a battle of strength, and they were currently evenly matched. "You requested it," he said scowling. Shizune felt a knee hit her in the gut before she knew it, causing her to cough in pain. Kabuto then shoved her away, causing her to fall to the ground while activating a chakra scalpel in his left hand. He then charged towards her, his kunai in hand, causing Shizune to gasp. She then rolled away a few times before rising to her feet, but she was too late, as Kabuto had already grabbed her right arm, causing her to let go of the kunai she was holding while screaming in pain. Taking immediate advantage, he targeted her right leg next, causing her to fall to the ground and land on her buttocks. She began to crawl away from Kabuto, clutching her right arm tightly, but she knew it was pointless because he was approaching her step by step and she was in no condition to run at the moment. "You'll never get to the leaf," she spat, finally coming to a halt, knowing she was doomed. "Orochimaru-sama always gets what he wants," he stated emphatically before raising his kunai for the final strike. "Tsunade will undoubtedly grant our request once she sees your dead body, but don't worry. Orochimaru-sama, along with her deceased lover and brother, can resurrect you." Shizune gave him one last look before closing her eyes and fighting back tears, but before Kabuto could strike her, someone grabbed his right arm, preventing him from attacking. Kabuto turned to his right and noticed Naruto with a solemn expression on his face. "Nobody, and I mean nobody," he threatened, "hurts the people I love and care about. If you do, I'll kick your ass 1,000 times." The bespectacled man smirked and thrust a knee into the boy's gut, causing him to double over in pain. Taking advantage of his pain situation, he punched the blonde in the right arm as well, causing Naruto to scream in pain as well, putting him in the same situation as Shizune. He then knelt on his knees and looked down at the ground, heavily breathing. "You should come with us, Naruto," Kabuto said, his hands returning to normal. "You could become more powerful than you can imagine thanks to your unique bloodline. Orochimaru-sama can learn more about your dojutsu and help you become the most powerful being in the world. Why should I go with you when I have everything I need and want back in the village?" said Naruto, his voice tinged with suspicion. "If you don't, we'll just have to ask forcibly instead of nicely," Kabuto smirked. "But I'll tell you something. You come with us, and I'll save the life of the medical ninja next to you and let her go. Given how you defended her, she appears to be important to you. Just give up because I've already severed your arm's bicep, rendering your attacks ineffective. In my eyes, you are nothing more than paper right now. Naruto then clenched his fists in frustration. So, Naruto, what are your plans? This isn't the Chunin exams, which you dominated. Even the most powerful being has limitations. Oh, you think I'm paper? Naruto laughed sarcastically again. Well, let me tell you my answer, he continued angrily, looking up at Kabuto. I'll never go with you or your knucklehead snake master. The meteor in his right arm was then activated. I'm going to put an end to both of you right here, right now. He immediately stood up, catching his opponent off guard, and delivered a punch to Kabuto's chest, sending the auto nin flying back, but he managed to compose himself.
How can you still be so strong?
He demanded of the blonde boy, his eyes widening. Your arm shouldn't be fully extended. Looks like you still don't know anything about me, Naruto grinned. I can activate my meteor on any part of my body and it not only allows me to fly. It also increases my strength 100-fold. He drew his own kunai and ran towards Kabuto. No matter how hard you try to weaken me, I'll still kick your ass. If that's true, then I'll just have to avoid any of his punches or kicks. Thought the bespectacled ninja as he drew another kunai from his waist bag. The same trick won't work twice. He retorted as he engaged Naruto in a battle of blades. The latter attempted to attack from above, but Kabuto rolled out of the way and rebounded with a leg sweep that knocked Naruto off his feet. To avoid killing him, he attempted to strike him in the chest with his chakra scalpel, but the blonde punched both of his legs, knocking him off his feet and onto the ground. They did a kip up at the same time, but this time it was Kabuto who made the first move, lunging towards the boy, but the latter avoided it by delivering a roundhouse kick to his face, sending the auto nin to the side, stumbling. The blonde wiped away the sweat and blood that was constantly pouring from his brow and continued his assault. As soon as Kabuto regained his feet, the Uzumaki activated meteor on his right arm and attempted to punch his opponent in the chest once more, but Kabuto was able to catch his forearm before he was hit. Naruto attempted to break free, but the bespectacled man had an octopus-like grip on his forearm that he couldn't shake. Kabuto smirked at him when he realized he couldn't be free. I told you that the same technique wouldn't work twice, he sarcastically reminded the boy. Why don't you go teach your friend, Sasuke Uchiha, a few tricks? Because, unlike you, he is a natural prodigy, and you were the last to become famous, right? He should be able to give you some pointers. Naruto didn't respond to his remark, instead muttering something under his breath, raising the auto eyebrow. The next thing he felt was an intense burning sensation in his abdomen, and he looked down to see Naruto's hand covered in blue flames, and he could feel the intense heat that it had caused him to sweat buckets. As the boy deactivated his blazing comet, he let go of Naruto's arm and jumped back several times to recover. Kabuto hissed in pain as he felt his purple shirt and white undershirt covering his stomach burn away, as well as his skin burn. What kind of jutsu was that? That was unlike any other fire technique I'd ever seen. He reflected as his hands glowed green. Its color is also different from normal fire techniques, it was blue. He then started healing himself from the damage he had sustained. Wait a minute, these burns are far worse than any other ordinary fire. Could this be one of his eyes techniques? He was interrupted in his thoughts by someone shouting in front of him. You should pay more attention to the fight, Kabuto! Screamed Naruto as he demonstrated another technique with hand signs. Kabuto was watching him intently, analyzing what he was about to do. Uchten, Shwakusei no Akari. He yelled, causing 8 medium-sized rocks to materialize behind him, causing the bespectacled man's eyes to widen in surprise. He threw his right arm out after a few seconds of staring, causing the rocks to fly towards Kabuto. Shit! Cursed the auto nin as he began avoiding all of the rocks as best he could. How did he make rocks out of nothing? This exceeds the highest level of rock manipulation. To be able to create something out of thin air is something that isn't seen every day. he thought to himself. Orochimaru-sama said nothing about it. All he told me was that this boy could fly. I guess I'll have to do all of the analyzing for the time being. After a few more seconds of dodging all the rocks, the exhausted Auto Nin took a few moments to catch his breath. "What a technique, Naruto," he exclaimed between breaths. "I've never seen anything like it. That's why. You should just come with us. Orochimaru-sama can study more about your eyes." He turned to face the blonde, only to see him turn his hand around and enclose it in a tight fist, raising an eyebrow. He screamed in agony when he felt many hard projectiles hit him on his back, causing him to kneel in agony. "Damn it, I should have known." He cursed himself again, panting. Because he could make those rocks, he could also control which way they went. "I should have blocked them all instead." He then glared at Naruto, who returned his gaze with his own. "How could I be so easily beaten by a child? Well, I think it's because I'm not used to fighting him with his dojutsu activated. But I'm curious how long he can keep it activated for." Naruto then charged at him with incredible speed, giving Kabuto a small energy boost. "Here he comes," he exclaimed as he jumped back to his feet and attempted a right hook on the blonde, but Naruto ducked under his intended strike and went behind the older man, wrapping his arms around Kabuto from behind. "Get ready for a ride," said Naruto, activating Meteor on his arms as Kabuto wondered what was going on and why Naruto would wrap his arms around him. He was lifted off the ground into a suplex and then brought crashing down, neck first into the ground. The blonde kept a firm grip on the Auto Waist Nins as he helped the two of them to their feet before lifting Kabuto for another suplex that further damaged the latter's neck, but Naruto wasn't finished as he still had a firm grip on him. When the blonde helped the two of them to their feet again, Kabuto began hitting him from behind with elbow strikes in an attempt to force the boy to let him go. "You better let go," exclaimed Kabuto, ratcheting up the force of his strikes. After about a dozen elbows, the bespectacled man felt Naruto's grip loosen, causing him to smile to himself. When he tried to move away, the Uzumaki grabbed his purple shirt from behind and yanked him back, wrapping his arms around Kabuto's waist once more. "Third time's the charm," said Naruto, ignoring the pain on the right side of his face caused by Kabuto's earlier attacks. He then lifted the bespectacled ninja for another suplex, but to his surprise, Kabuto landed on his feet after using his chakra scalpels. Naruto quickly recovered and sat back up, but his opponent was approaching and he had no way of countering his impending attack. He expected him to deliver the knockout blow, but to his surprise, Kabuto stopped his hand just inches from his face. He then turned his attention to his opponent, who was bruised from the damage he had taken. "Why, you're lucky. That Orochimaru-sama wants to learn more about you," he said, panting heavily and cracking his neck to relieve the pain. "I'll give you one more chance. Come with me and Orochimaru-sama, and nobody will get hurt." A few seconds passed, but Naruto just stared at him, stunned. "Well? What will it be, eh?" "This is your last chance, Naruto. I'm sure Orochimaru-sama will understand. If I kill you right here. After all, he still has a backup plan." Naruto's gaze then shifted to the arm in front of him. After a few seconds, Kabuto's eyes widened in realization as he raised an eyebrow at what he was doing. He was aware of Naruto's plans after witnessing them during his fight with Gaara. "Oh, no!" he exclaimed, attempting to pull his arm away, but it was too late because Naruto had a firm grip on his forearm. "Rain MK!" he yelled, dragging Kabuto towards him for his signature taijutsu technique, which the latter took incorrectly but much more painfully, in the mouth. After the impact, both of them fell to the ground, especially Kabuto, who coughed up a handful of blood as soon as Naruto hit his neck, which was already weakened from the 2 suplexes he ate earlier. The boy then felt Kurama give him a piece of his chakra, causing energy to flow throughout his entire body as he felt alive again. He quickly rose to his feet and noticed that the Auto Nin was still down. I think this is the perfect time to show what I've learned, he said calmly, making the clone seal afterwards, and 2 shadow clones appeared beside him almost immediately. After about a minute of lying on the ground, Kabuto began struggling to his feet. His vision was hazy as a result of how he used Naruto's last technique. He was barely able to stand when he got back to his feet because he was dizzy, but that stopped when he felt someone hold him from behind. When he felt someone supporting him, Kabuto shook his head several times to get out of his dizziness, and then he looked behind him to see Naruto holding both of his arms behind his body, making it impossible for the Auto-nin to escape. He tried to kick the blonde from behind with his feet, but Naruto deflected all of his attempts. When he heard a swirling sound in front of him, he turned to face whoever it was. "This will be the end for you," exclaimed the original Naruto as he began to provide chakra with his right hand, which was being rotated in all directions by the clone beside him. He was attempting the Rasengan. The blue chakra kept spinning and spinning while being contained inside an invisible sphere, remaining true to the third test that he had worked so hard to complete. With each passing second, Kabuto looked more terrified, attempting to break free from the clone's grip, and then, after half a minute, the spinning ball of chakra on Naruto's right hand finally became whole and contained. It was his father's method all along. "Let's do this," he exclaimed, charging towards Kabuto while drawing his right arm back. "This is bad," thought Kabuto as he tried one last time to get loose and free himself. He slid his right leg between the legs of the clone behind him and brought it up with such force that it hit the family jewels, sensing that he had finally found an opening. In response, the clone covered his crotch with both hands, screamed in agony, and vanished in a puff of smoke. Kabuto smirked, seeing that he had finally broken free, but when he shifted his gaze to the Naruto in front of him, the blonde was now directly in front of him, having used Meteor to get closer in a flash. "Oh, no," he grumbled. "Rasengan!" screamed Naruto as he drove the sphere in his right hand into Kabuto's stomach, causing the latter to scream in pain as soon as he felt the impact. With a loud cry from the blonde Uzumaki himself, the technique sent Kabuto flying towards a large rock, his eyes as wide as saucers in shock, and he also felt some of the bones on his back crack when he crashed on the large boulder. The clone who had assisted Naruto in forming the Rasengan vanished as he bent forward and rested his hands on his knees, catching his breath. He then looked up to see Kabuto unconscious and defeated on the ground. One completed, one to go. "I'm sure this will be more enjoyable," he thought to himself, turning around to face the impending battle between the 3 Sannin, but he was interrupted by a call to his name. "Naruto-kun!" yelled Shizune, causing Naruto to turn his head in the direction she was shouting. "Are you okay, Naruto-kun?" she asked, finally reaching him as she exhaled heavily. She was watching the boy and Kabuto fight from the sidelines, healing herself in the process. The blonde smiled and nodded, but her hands glowed green as she checked to see if he was truly fine. She finally came to a halt after about a minute and sighed in relief because Naruto was not seriously injured. "I'm glad you're safe, Naruto-kun," she grumbled as she drew him into a hug. "I apologize if I disappointed you. I failed to do what you asked of me, and I was unable to defeat him." This time she spoke in a sad tone. The boy pushed her away gently. "It's okay, Shizune-chan," he said, dismissing her apology. "I admit that Kabuto is a formidable opponent, and I believe that if I hadn't intervened in your fight earlier, he would have killed you. I did what I needed to do, so don't feel bad." Shizune nodded and smiled warmly. "Anyway, I need to get going and help Ba-chan and Ero Sennin with their fight. Do you think you could keep an eye on Kabuto for me? Just to make sure he doesn't leave?" Hearing what he wanted to do, the medic eyes Nin's widened in surprise. "What are you thinking, kid? You can't compete with Orochimaru. He's far too dangerous to be your opponent, and right now, only Tsunade-sama and Jiraiya-sama are capable of dealing with him.
Trying to fight him head-on is suicide.
I know that, and I'm not going to fight him," he said calmly. But that doesn't mean I can't help Ba-chan and Ero Sennin, does it? Consider this. It would be much easier to bring that snake bastard down if I help them fight, right? Of course, I'm not stupid enough to charge ahead and throw everything I've got. I can also fight from a distance. Do you see what I mean? Shizune, though hesitant, knew he was correct, so she nodded slowly. There you have it. Do you think you can keep an eye on Kabuto over there? He pointed to the unconscious body of the bespectacled man. We need to make sure he's knocked out for good so Orochimaru doesn't have any backup. She laughed. Okay, I'll take care of it. Just make one promise to me, Naruto-kun. The blonde looked her in the eyes, waiting for her to say something. Please be cautious. Don't try to be a hero all of the time. Because I believe Tsunade-sama will be upset if she finds you injured or, worse, dead on the ground. She knelt and stroked his shoulder. Shizune Nichan, you got it. I'll be extra cautious when dealing with Orochimaru, he responded with a big grin and a thumbs up. Ba-chan, me, and Ero Sennin will bring that Orochi bastard down. She laughed at Naruto's amusing nickname for the snake Sannin before rising to her feet. She gave him one last wink before sprinting over to Kabuto's unconscious form to complete her task. The blonde turned to face the other snake that Orochimaru and Kabuto had summoned earlier. Don't you think it's time for the real thing, Kurama? He inquired of the Biju within him. I agree, the Kyuubi said, finally waking up. Go get that snake, Kit. And don't let him bother the village again. Naruto smiled as yellow light flashed across his entire body as fast as lightning. Let's get this settled, Orochi bastard. He screamed and took off from the ground, flying towards the Sannin's battle.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.